Hey everybody, and welcome back to History Student Reacts. Today we are watching Napoleon's Bloodiest Day, Borodino 1812 by Epic History TV. So this is the next video in Epic History TV's Napoleonic Wars series. In the last one, we saw the beginnings of Napoleon's invasion of Russia, which basically involved, a sort of undecisive battle with the Russians, challenges facing both armies, particularly the French army and its supply line. And then we sort of left off at Borodino. Apparently this was the bloodiest battle of the entire conflict. So I'm, interested to get into this one. I'm really not familiar with this battle at all, so I'm excited to learn. Anyway, let's jump right into it.
This Epic History TV video is brought to you by Magellan TV, the documentary streaming service.
Okay, from the man himself.
Russia, 1812. Napoleon invades his former ally with the largest army Europe has ever seen. But for the French Emperor, the decisive blow remains frustratingly beyond reach. Russia's resilience is unlike anything he's ever encountered. And as winter closes in, his army begins the most infamous retreat in history. September 1812. 10 weeks had passed since Napoleon invaded Russia with more than 500,000 men.
Right.
The French Emperor wanted a quick victory over the Russians, one that would force Emperor Alexander to make peace and agree to French terms. But at Vitebsk and then Smolensk, the outnumbered Russian army had narrowly escaped his clutches. The holy city of Smolensk had been virtually destroyed. Napoleon had advanced deep into Russia, and
it's worth noting that Napoleon initially planned for a much quicker campaign that did not advance that far into the interior. So at this point, he's quite far outside the original plans, though he's not necessarily just acting rashly. He has taken some time to think about what he's doing. So his decisions are calculated, but he is sort of making them as he goes.
Months of marching had left his army decimated by disease and exhaustion.
Yeah.
It was now half its original strength, and summer was nearly over.
Uh-oh.
But finally, 70 miles west of Moscow, near the village of Borodino, the Russians had turned to offer battle. Napoleon would have a chance to win the decisive victory that he believed would end the war. In 1812, Napoleon was master of Europe.
All right, so shout out to the channel Epic History TV and their sponsor. Go check out their video. It looks interesting. Magellan, clearly related to this. So please go check all that out. Show some love to the original creator.
But his meteoric rise, he told in the Drum TV, 1,000 documentary, computer,
Nice.
phone, weekly, and .com. Magellan TV, War II's Eastern Magellan TV for supporting the channel.
All right, good stuff. Go check that out. Yep, they were waiting for this battle. This is what Napoleon has wanted. A decisive battle against the Russians to really end this campaign. Let's see what he's gonna get.
The Russian army, commanded by the 67-year-old, one-eyed veteran General Kuzetsov, occupied a defensive position across the two main roads leading from Smolensk to Moscow. General Barclay de Tolly's First Army was on the right, its front protected by the Kalatsha River. steep-banked but shallow and easily forded. Prince Bagration's Second Army was on the left, a more open position but reinforced by major earthworks, the Great Redoubt, and what the French nicknamed, for their shape, the Flèche, the arrows. Another forward redoubt at Borodino was expected to delay the enemy's advance. Historians still dispute the size of the Russian army, but it's likely Kutuzov had around 121,000 men and 680 guns at Borodino.
Okay.
On the 5th of September, Napoleon's army began to arrive from the west.
So, the Russians have chosen the position. They're entrenched. They're ready to defend. Obviously, that gives them an advantage, but, that hasn't stopped Napoleon in the past necessarily. So, we'll see if he can work his way around that advantage.
Around 130,000 men and 585 guns.
So basically, there's some ambiguity in how big the Russian army was, but it seems like they were fairly well matched, perhaps.
Napoleon quickly saw that the Borodino redoubt would have to be taken before he could deploy his army, and ordered an immediate assault. The attack was led by Compan's 5th Division of the 1st Corps, supported by the Polish 5th Corps to the south.
Right.
In several hours of heavy fighting, the redoubt changed hands more than once. But late that evening, the Russians finally withdrew to their main line, and the redoubt fell to the French. Its capture had cost them an estimated 4,000 casualties.
Wow.
While the Russians lost around 6,000 men.
That is a lot of casualties just for this forward position. I mean, we haven't even gotten into the meat of the battle yet, and those are already quite high casualty numbers. So, I can already sort of see where this is going. The bloodiest day, as this video is titled. That's becoming clear already, although I'm sure it's going to get a lot worse.
Napoleon noted how few prisoners were taken, a worrying sign of the enemy's unbroken resolve.
Right.
Both sides spent the next day preparing for battle. Marshal Davout, commanding French First Corps and widely considered Napoleon's most able subordinate, appealed to the Emperor to use his corps to make a wide, outflanking attack to the south. But Napoleon dismissed the idea as too risky, and instead began preparing for a massive frontal assault.
I'm sure, I haven't even seen what happens with the battle yet, but I'm sure there's speculation over what would have happened if Davout's plan had been put into effect. Let me know what you guys think. I'm certain that some of you have opinions about this. I'm not quite sure, since I don't even know how the battle's going to go yet, but let me know what you think.
On the Russian defenses.
Jeez. Bad omens.
Shortly after dawn on the 7th of September, Orthodox priests paraded one of Russia's holiest icons, Our Lady of Smolensk, before the Russian army. It was a stirring sight for many devout Russian soldiers, thousands of whom would not live to see dusk.
Wow. So this is, we already talked in both the beginning of this video and in the last one about how Smolensk was basically completely destroyed and how it was a really holy place for Russians. And we also talked in the last video about how, sort of like, with the Catholics in Spain, Tsar Alexander in particular had started to see this in a religious light, Napoleon as the Antichrist. Orthodox Christianity was really big in Russia. You know, Russia was the center of the Orthodox world, a very religious country. So, you know, this is important to them, and this really means a lot. You know, this is a big part of, I'm sure, the army's morale, of their beliefs, of, you know, what's binding them together. So, yeah, this is definitely a stirring sort of moment for them, I'm sure.
The battle began at 6 a.m. as French batteries opened a deafening cannonade against the Russian defenses. Eugene's 4th Corps advanced on Borodino village, lightly held by Jaegers of the Russian Imperial Guard. After clearing the village, his infantry crossed the Kalacha and advanced towards the Great Redoubt, but were driven back with heavy losses. The Russians burned the bridge across the river, but did not launch a counterattack, and Eugene was able to move cannon into the village to put flanking fire on the Great Redoubt. In the center, Davout's 1st Corps began its advance against the Fleches, coming under heavy fire. While on the right, the Polish 5th Corps, ordered to take Utitsa, got held up in the woods and ravines. Their slow advance allowed Tushkov's 3rd Corps to send a division north to reinforce the Fleche defenses. Kutuzov, at his headquarters in Gorky, took little part in the battle, leaving tactical decisions to his subordinates.
That's choice. I mean, you know, there's various levels of sort of decentralization. You know, there's some commanders who would try and run the whole thing themselves, though with a battle of this scale at this time period, that would seem to be very difficult. So maybe it's the right move that he sort of left a lot of the tactical decisions to the people on the ground, because from his position, he's never going to be in a position where he can observe the entire army and get orders out in a timely manner. You know, everything's just too big in scale, too spread out. I mean, as you can see, there's, you know, many different things going on at different points in the battlefield. So, you know, a very difficult sort of situation to control. And if you have trusted subordinates, maybe you leave it to them. I'm not sure.
Barclay and Bagration had spent most of the summer arguing furiously over strategy.
Yep.
But in the hour of crisis, they put their differences aside.
Nice.
They could see the main French attack was falling on the Russian center and left. So Barclay ordered General Bagavout's 2nd Corps south to reinforce Bagration.
Hey, that's what it's about. You know, clearly Barclay isn't necessarily going for personal glory in this. He realizes there's something more at stake. The two have been arguing for months at this point, but Barclay's still willing to see the bigger cause. So, you know, respect.
Fighting around the Fleche intensified as the French captured one of the earthworks, only to be driven out by a Russian counterattack. Davout himself was injured in the fighting as he fell from his dying horse, but he refused to leave the field.
Nice.
When Russian cavalry counterattacked, Marshal Miura himself led the French cavalry forward to meet them.
Wow.
Ney's 3rd Corps now joined the attack on the Fleche. A charge by Russian cuirassiers forced Murat to take shelter in a square of Württemberg infantry. Murat, with his flamboyant dress and reckless courage, had now even made a name for himself among the Russians. The Cossacks, in particular, saw him as a kindred spirit and were eager to capture him alive if they could.
That's kind of funny. Yeah, that's amusing. It's also, this is some real intense fighting. We've got Murat, Davout right in there. We've got a ton of men concentrated in this area. You know, this is some pretty intense stuff right now.
To the south, Polish troops now took Utitsa, which the Russians set ablaze before withdrawing.
Typical.
But General Bagavout's reinforcements arrived just in time to shore up the Russian flank. Around 10 a.m., Eugène launched another attack on the Great Redoubt. It was briefly captured by Murat's 1st Division, before his men were thrown out by a ferocious Russian counterattack. The Russian army's 27-year-old artillery commander, General Kuzetsov, was killed leading one of these counterattacks. A heroic death, but a blow to the organization of Russian artillery for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying with the intensity of the fighting, with a lot of these important men right in there. The bravery is commendable, but if you get yourself killed, that's going to be a problem. It seems like this is particularly brutal due to the defenses set up by the Russians, you know? The Russians have set up, they've entrenched, and so when the French approach, there's lots of time for shooting, which leads to high casualties, and then, you know, the French approach, capture, the Russians recapture. You know, you can sort of already see why the casualties ended up being so high in this battle.
Fighting continued to rage around the Flèche earthworks. Some counted as many as 6 major French assaults, involving 45,000 troops, with hundreds of cannon on both sides, pouring fire into the packed ranks. More than once, French infantry fought their way into one of the Russian positions, only to be driven out again at bayonet point. Junot's Westphalian Corps was sent forward in support, helping to clear Russian skirmishers from the woods to the south. General Bagration was close to the action, overseeing the defense of the Flèche, leading forward reinforcements and ordering counterattacks. Around 10 a.m., he was hit in the leg by shell fragments.
Uh-oh.
Mortally wounded, he was carried from the field.
Oh, yeah, that is not good. I mean, this is, you know, Bagration has been a pretty aggressive guy throughout this campaign, so it's not surprising that he's right there in the middle of it. But this is not good. You know, he's one of the highest ranking men on the field right now. One of the top 3. So him being out of commission is, you know, that is a big blow to the Russian forces.
Shaken by the loss of their iconic commander, the exhausted Russian infantry began to fall back. The French finally took the Flèche. Marshal Miura then led forward Friant's division, 1st Corps' last reserve, supported by waves of heavy cavalry on both flanks. Russian grenadiers formed squares to ward off the French cuirassiers, while their own guard cavalry fought the French in a giant confused melee, with heavy losses on both sides.
Man.
The Russians resisted doggedly, but the combined onslaught of French artillery, cavalry, and infantry proved irresistible.
I mean, some really tough fighting here, you know. The French are really pushing and the Russians are really resisting. It's honestly a little surprising given that the morale of both armies was a little low at this point. You know, the Russians had been sort of retreating for a while and that dipped their morale, and the French had been struggling with a lot of different issues, you know, disease and supplies, exhaustion, and that had done a number on the morale of their men. But also, you know, both sides know that this is an important battle. You know, the Russians are defending the way to Moscow, either the first or the second most important city in their country, and the French are going for this major victory, which they hope will end the war. So, you know, for both sides, this is a very important battle, which may be part of why they're fighting so hard for it.
As the Russians pulled back, Friant's infantry fought their way into the village of Semyonovskaya. The Russian center was in disarray and seemed close to breaking. Surely now was the time for Napoleon to deliver the knockout blow.
Surely. Oh man, well, That's an honest colonel, at least. Let's go and get killed.
For most of the day, Napoleon remained at his headquarters near Borodino. Those around him later said that illness, as well as the exertions of the long campaign, had left him tired and irritable.
Oh, I don't like where this is going. You know, I talked about earlier how difficult it would be to command an army of this scale in a battle of this scale. But if there's one man who could do it, it is Napoleon. But from what they've just said, it seems maybe there were some problems.
As the Russian center buckled, Miura and his staff urged him to send forward his last reserve, the Imperial Guard. The Emperor refused.
Ooh.
If there is another battle tomorrow, he asked them, where is my army?
Interesting. So, this is caution, which is rare from Napoleon. You know, Napoleon is generally aggressive. He's decisive. Napoleon, from what we've seen, has always been willing to make that gamble. You know, go for the risk. And for him, it usually pays off. Not always, but usually. Though it seems like here he's not going for the risk. He's decided not to take the gamble. Makes you wonder what would have happened. I get the feeling that it might have worked out, given that when Napoleon takes those gambles, he's, so far he's usually been successful.
But he did make one exception. Barclay was continuing to move troops from his unengaged right wing to bolster the center.
Nice.
As Osterman Tolstoy's 4th Corps arrived behind the Russian center, French observers feared they were massing for an attack. So Napoleon ordered forward General Sorbier's Guard artillery. His batteries opened a devastating fire on the enemy. Yet even as they were mown down in their ranks, the Russian infantry stood their ground.
Wow. Brave.
On the Russian right wing, all remained quiet. So General Platov, commander of the Don Cossacks, proposed that he lead an attack on the lightly defended Borodino village. Permission received, Generals Platov and Uvarov led a force of 8,000 Cossacks and cavalry across the Kalacha River. They fell on French and Italian troops around Borodino with complete surprise, spreading panic and disorder. Grouchy's 3rd Cavalry Corps had to be pulled back across the river to drive off the Russians. Russian commanders saw this raid as a missed opportunity, but it had delayed the next French attack by 2 hours, and may have persuaded Napoleon that he was right to hold back his reserve.
Yeah. Wounded for the 22nd time at Borodino. Oh my god. General Rep, this guy's lucky to be alive. In fact, not lucky, it's remarkable that he's survived 22 injuries. At this time, that's extremely rare. You'd think that one of those would get infected and he would die or something. That is frankly remarkable. I'm not sure how he had survived up until this point.
Around 3 p.m., the French launched their biggest assault yet on the Great Redoubt.
Okay.
Russian gunners targeted the French infantry advancing to their front, allowing French cavalry to outflank the redoubt and charge it from the rear. Saxon cavalry were first in, cutting down Russian infantry and gunners almost to the last man. It was an astonishing feat by the horsemen, against all the rules of war, and testament to the ferocity of the fighting.
Yeah, that's another element of the casualties, is just the brutality of this. No prisoners taken. There are some prisoners taken, but you get my meaning. Few prisoners taken. They're getting in there. They're killing everybody. People are fighting to their last breath. this is an extremely brutal and desperate fight.
As Eugene's infantry consolidated their hold on the redoubt, he ordered forward all the available cavalry to exploit this success. But they were met and checked by the last Russian cavalry reserves.
Nice.
Eugene now implored Napoleon to commit the Imperial Guard. But again, the Emperor refused.
Wow.
"I will not destroy my guard," he told his staff. "I am 800 leagues from France, and I will not risk my last reserve."
Well, I mean, same thing as earlier. Surprising caution from Napoleon. This is not characteristic of him, at least not up until this point.
By 5 p.m., both armies were in a state of utter exhaustion.
Yeah.
The battlefield was strewn with dead and wounded. Some infantry battalions could muster only a third of their strength.
Wow.
Cavalry could advance no faster than a trot. Gun crews were collapsing with fatigue. As dusk approached, fighting slowly died out across the battlefield. Napoleon and the French army expected the fighting to resume the next day. But by dawn, Kutuzov, having learned the full, horrifying scale of Russian losses, had ordered a withdrawal. The losses on both sides were enormous. Russian casualties are estimated at 44,000.
Oh my
French
God.
losses around 30,000,
Jesus.
including 49 generals, 12 of them killed. Borodino would prove to be the bloodiest single day of the Napoleonic Wars.
Yeah, I mean, that is extremely brutal. And as you can see, the Russians have lost, significantly more than the French. And the Russians had less men to begin with. Although I'm not sure if that was true at this point, because the French had lost a lot of men from disease and stuff like that. But yeah, these are some major, major losses. I mean, who knows how much worse it would have gotten if they'd fought another day. This is already sort of unimaginable carnage from one day of fighting.
The Russian army could not fight another battle until it had received major reinforcements.
Yeah.
And so Kutuzov decided that he must abandon Moscow. On the 15th of September, a week after his victory at Borodino, Napoleon entered the city. He would find it virtually deserted, and already the first fires starting to burn.
So I suppose we're gonna continue Napoleon's time in Russia in the next video. We're gonna get the rest of the story, because at this point, this was extremely destructive for both sides, but a victory for the French. So if you're an optimistic person and you didn't know the rest of the story, you could be forgiven for thinking that maybe Napoleon's gonna win this one. Maybe he'll conquer the Russians. That will not happen. But of course, we'll have to wait to see that. So that was another great video. Truly a brutal, brutal battle. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, check out the Patreon, all that good stuff. I hope all you guys are having a good day, by the way. It's heating up, at least where I am. Try and get outside, enjoy the weather. And I will see you guys again next time. Goodbye, everybody.